All right, so I'm recording now, so just FYI.
Keep it clean.
Yeah, keep it clean.
Don't beat on you so much.
Do what?
Don't beat on you too much.
No, that's okay. That's understood.
Thank you.
All right, so today last week we were talking about different versions of the Bible. Um, this week, this is the LSB that I was talking about last week, the Legacy Standard Bible. This is the most word for word translation Bible that's out there. So it literally takes um, every word and translates it directly into modern English. Um, so we're going to be working with Psalm 5 today. So I thought maybe we could just kind of look at the two side by side. Um, Give ear to my words, O Yahweh. Consider my meditation. Give heed to the sound of my cry for help, my King and my God. For to you I pray. O Yahweh, in the morning you will hear my voice. In the morning I will order my prayer to you and eagerly watch. For you are not a God who delights in wickedness. Evil does not sojourn with you. The boastful shall not stand before your eyes. You hate all workers of iniquity. The fact that it uses that word hate, that in itself, I think, is a misnomer, but that's my opinion. You destroy those who speak falsehood. Yahweh abhors the man of bloodshed and deceit. But as for me, in the abundance of your loving kindness, I will enter your house. At your holy temple, I will worship in fear of you. So that's the legacy standard. Now let's go over to Holman. Listen to my words, Lord. Consider my sighing. Pay attention to the sound of my cry, my King and my God, for I pray to you. At daybreak, Lord, you hear my voice. At daybreak, I plead my case to you and watch expectantly. For you are not a God who delights in wickedness. Evil cannot dwell with you. The boastful cannot stand in your presence. You hate all evildoers. You destroy those who tell lies. The Lord abhors a man of bloodshed and treachery. But I enter your house by the abundance of your faithful love. I bow down toward your holy temple in reverential awe of you. Lord, lead me in your righteousness because of my adversaries. Make your way straight before me. I think those two sound very different. Um, just looking at that, listen to my words, Lord, consider my sighing. Can give ear to my words, O Yahweh, consider my meditation. Um, I think that LSB sounds a lot more like the King James in terms of use of archaic words. What do you think? And what's the difference between consider my meditation um, and consider my sighing? Do those even sound like the same words?
So,
I mean, and you've gone from the LSB, which is the Legacy Standard Bible, which is the most accurate word for word translation, to the Holman Christian Bible or the Christian Standard Bible, which is third tier. So the only thing between it is the ESV, and the ESV is actually a fairly decent translation, probably considered the more standard of the three. Um, but I don't know. I think listen to my words, Lord, consider my sighing, and give ear to my words, O Yahweh, consider my meditation.
meditation's quiet. Sighing is something that we do all the time.
Yeah, you're right.
Up, down,
Mm.
trying to walk,
Um,
very verbal. Thing.
Yeah, I did start recording. So that's just interesting to me that you can have such a disparity, but yet how can one be right and one be wrong? Or can you say that one is right and one is wrong?
Well, I think you can say that about it if you want to, because think about how many different interpretations of language you had to go through till you got to the English language. Now, I'm not talking about the
Yeah.
English.
Well, this one has
I'm talking about
you have to go through three. You need to go from Hebrew to Latin to no, Hebrew to Greek to English. Um and yeah. So I mean, how can you come up with two different ideas? Consider my meditation and consider my sighing. What's the difference between those two words? Sighing and meditation.
I have the New International Version and mine says sign,
Okay.
consider my sign. But to me, that's meditation is more like what?
Within yourself, yeah.
Well, what is the word to you? What does the word sighing mean? Sighing.
That's great.
Okay.
You need help.
Okay. That is a class. I mean, if someone sighs, they generally it's a sign of giving up, that we would think. But is that
I guess the question you would ask is what was David doing at this time? Which one of those would apply to that?
no, I mean, it follows immediately with pay attention to the sound of my cry, my King and my God, for I pray to you. Um, and in the LSB, give heed to the sound of my cry for help, my King and my God, for to you I pray. So exasperation, I think, is a solid word. Um, how many of you have ever been in this situation? I mean, have any of you, I mean, I think of when I'm having a rough week, and I'm just talking about a standard week. I mean, nothing to write home about, just a regular, everyday old week. Have you ever gotten to the point, even in a standard week, where you're just like, I just got to talk to God. I've just got to, I just got to unload this. I'm tired of the burden of, and I say this lightly, I'm tired of the burden of life.
We've had that for the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's one hit after another, and then Tuesday was the trees. And you're going, oh my gosh. And then Jamie calls home and says, I'm having trouble with my car.
Yeah.
Do you know a good mechanic? No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's over here on my left.
Yeah.
So the idea of uh, just the burden of life just pressing down upon you, when we stop and think about that, how many of you here are truly honest with your spouse?
Do I have to admit?
Not always.
That's me staring at the ceiling for those of you online. How many of us are truly honest with the people we care about the most? I know as a male, there are things I won't tell my wife because it makes me look weak.
That's about right.
And you don't have to raise your hand or anything, but how many of you men have ever done that? Withheld something from your spouse because you thought it would make you look ineffective or weak.
And they certainly don't want us to try and fix it. with a, ibuprofen.
I think you've actually with ibuprofen. There you go. Exactly. No, and I think you've hit on it. I mean, like last night, I'll give you an example. We went over to the kids' house and we watched So Bad It's Good movie. And what that means is it's a terrible 70s movie. It was the name of it was For Your Height Only, and it's about a little 2'9" um, primordial dwarf guy,
Oh,
and
really?
he's running around as James Bond. So just imagine a little 2'9" guy running around as a James Bond character. And they all hated the movie. It was just terrible. But it was supposed to be. That's why I introduced them to it so they could see what a so bad that it's good movie is.
They stuck it out, they didn't make you,
Oh, they made me feel, miserable about it.
they didn't make you change the channel. Yeah.
Yeah. But they kept watching it. So it was, but as I went and got pizza and we brought popcorn and cookies, the whole thing just to make it a fun event. And as I was walking up the stairs, I don't know how I missed the stair,
Oh.
but I did. And so I'm carrying two pizzas, and the next thing I know, my head's in the middle of the deck, and and face plant, and I didn't hit my face, but I mean, I got real close, but my back, my shoulder, my arm, everything was just like, huh, well, that's interesting. Where'd that come
You
from?
didn't mess up the pizza, did you?
No, I saved the pizza.
Saved the pizza.
Yeah, that's the important part. Didn't even jostle it. It was really good. But just that something coming at you out of left field, and I didn't want to tell anyone that I slipped and fell on the steps as I was coming up the deck. It's like this is supposed to be a fun time. Um, and now I can, you know, now that I've thought it through, I'm not so embarrassed about it. I can talk about it. It's not a big deal. I fall all the time. I've never been coordinated. I used to fall when I was a kid. So why would I expect it to be any different now? Um, but the idea of do we hide a lot of who we are to the people we love the most? Do we hide who we are to the people we love the most? Okay, that's right.
It tracks.
Do we?
I feel like I do, but it don't matter because it's right on my face.
Yeah.
What's the matter with you? Why are you acting that way? Why do you look that way? Bella goes, okay, just tell me and I'll help you. I go like, fine, fine, I'm fine. They don't buy it usually.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you are an abnormally easy person to read. There's not a whole lot of mythos around you. We pretty much know what you're thinking. I get that, but and it's really an honest trait. I think it is. I mean, it lets people know where you stand. I mean, if you're displeased, people know it. And sometimes that's even a problem because you're not really displeased, you're just being honest. And that can be a problem too. People misread what your intent is. Um, I mean, you can have a frowny face and still be happy inside. True or false?
True.
I suppose.
Yeah. Um, so when we look at these two different translations, we see the listen to my words, Lord. Consider my sighing, as opposed to consider my meditation. What does it mean to meditate? Not medicate, meditate.
Just be within yourself and think about, and I think of it like as praying too, just getting my thoughts out in my head.
I always looked at it as quietly considering what's going on.
Is that what you're doing?
That's it. That's it. When you meditate, what is usually the end result of your meditation?
Fall asleep.
Okay. But how many of you are meditating upon your life when you actually find yourself sighing? What starts the process of the sigh?
Life.
Yeah, but you have to consider what it is that you're, what led you to the point to where you finally just went,
I think a sigh can also mean contentment. It doesn't necessarily.
it can, you're right. But in the context, if we look at the next verse, give heed to the sound of my cry for help. I think we're in a different territory. Yeah, I mean, you can be a sigh of contentment. It's over, which we'll see further on. We'll see that change. So I think if you look at the actual intent of the word, consider my meditation, that you see this person meditating upon their issue, their problem. And what happens?
They sigh. We don't know.
Exactly, they do. They sigh. The intent is, I have considered the situation and I am not at ease. Right? So if you look at it from that perspective, I think this LSB is actually talking about what got you there. Whereas the Holman or the Christian Standard Bible basically is saying, it doesn't really matter how I got there, but I'm there. Does that make sense? So in one, we're talking about what it took to get me to sigh, and in the other, we're just bypassing what got me there to the point that I am there. Is that a change of the intent?
Well, it seems to be the same result.
It's the same end result. And I wonder, let's see if I've got the Living Bible. I don't know if I do or not.
Oh, yes, let's throw a third in here.
See what I saw? See what I said about you're making sure people understood where you stood? You got that one real good.
Thank you.
Oh, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to go here. And you'd think after all these years that I've owned these tools, I'd know how to use them better.
Well, we aren't gonna comment on that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a new window.
Uh, there's the legacy standard. No pressure. Okay, well, I can't find it. But the idea is that if we were to read the Living Bible, we would probably see an even further down the road idea of thought for thought as opposed to word for word. Um, yeah.
I think the end of verse 2 is where you're headed. Lord, to you I pray. How'd you get there? Well, I'm here now.
Yeah. For I pray to you. And both of them have the same concept there. So, yeah. So while I just think the idea here is the concept of biblical interpretation. We have a problem in our society where people will say, well, the Bible can't be trusted because it just says whatever people want it to say. Is that the case? Is the Bible so open to interpretation that anyone can make it say whatever they want it to say?
Possibly.
But I can do that with anything that's written, right? How many of you?
Rod does it on TV all day long, every day.
Who's that?
That guy Rod.
Yeah.
They used to call him Rod God at because he was such a terrible. And the only time he was quoting verses when his bank flows.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
There's a website. Let's see if I can find it here.
Here we go again.
So there's this website. It's called Ground News. And what it does is it goes through and it looks at, for example, Israel and Gaza. So it goes out and it finds all of the newspapers and magazines and everything that you can think of, and it lists where they stand in their presentation. Are they to the left? Are they to the right? Are they centrist? What is it? And you can actually read the different stories in from different articles and places. And see if I can give you an example here. Yeah, so here's an example on the right-hand side. Coverage details, total news sources 20, leaning left 3, leaning right center, and to the center 7. So I can go through and read the different interpretations. Here's the different news sources. And it allows you to read through and kind of figure out what the actual situation is. Does that make sense? So what does that do?
Confuses you?
Well, it can. But if we look at the Bible, if you think about the interpretation or the translations, I think you can kind of get to the same place. Some people always have, what would you call it? Well, their own way of reading and understanding things. How many of you here have ever played that game where you whisper something in someone's ear and you tell the next person, you tell the next person, and it goes around the room and comes out something really weird? Um, you know, that isn't, that's not what we want when it comes to scriptural interpretation, right? We take what was written and then we go around the room and we discuss what's the best way to present what is being said here. And that's how these Bibles came about. The Legacy Standard Bible, they took a group of professionals who have learned these languages, and they all sat down and discussed it. And they said, we're going to write this from the perspective of a group of people that want to be the absolute closest to what these words were in reality, converted over to English. Yeah, go ahead.
I was reading something this week and now I can't remember where I read it. It was either on Public Witness. I don't know if you know about that website. Brian Kaler, Word and Way, the state Missouri Baptist state paper for years.
Okay.
I read his, and then Russell Moore, Christianity Today, might have been it. But anyway, it was talking about this theologian and how he went back to the Greek to everything rather than the Hebrew.
Right.
Guy.
Which,
it was way above my head.
yeah, which I mean, you can't really do because the Hebrew was first and the Septuagint was the second. So it was a translation from the Hebrew to the Greek by Hebrew scholars.
Yeah.
So back in the day, you had, and it was part of what the King James movement. So you actually get the the King James Bible is based upon these Hebrew scholars who took Hebrew and put it into Greek, and then they converted that to English.
But
So,
when you think about the centuries of all these theologians that are, studied and interpreted the Bible,
right.
and I just kind of think, well, God's still over everything,
Mhm.
and that He still has control, and I think his message is getting through to us.
No, you're right.
You
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely. And again, I don't disagree with that in any way, shape, or form. I think the idea is that people get to a place where they're just like, I just can't trust the Bible, right? Um, well, I only read this translation because it's the only one that is proven to be true. King James only Bible people. I mean, they can be really, really hateful when it comes to if you don't read this version of the Bible, you're going to hell. And
well, and we all know
yes,
the Bible has been greatly misused, right?
oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, we wiped out an entire nation of Indians,
Right.
Native Americans in the name of God. Um, now, am I somewhat uh, happy that it happened? No, I'm not happy it happened at all. But I sure do appreciate the fact that we live in a society where I can just take a shower when I want to. I mean, but what had to happen for that to occur? Entire nation of people were wiped out. Um, Western civilization, is it worth it? I mean, it's a seriously big question. I mean, is Western civilization, and that's part of what today's society falling apart and people saying, the colonizers, and if you're listening to any of the new um, thoughts that are going on in our country, people are rebelling against Western civilization. And what does that mean? Rebelling against Western civilization.
Well, it's my bias showing, but they're not getting what they want.
Well, yeah, I mean,
You're getting this and I'm not. So
and a lot of that has to do with, yeah, the disparity between classes. I mean, we all like to believe that in the United States there is no class system, right?
Sigh.
Do we all sigh? Thank you. You used that in appropriate form. Uh, She meditated upon the idea and she sighed. Thank you very much. You've proven this.
You're welcome. You
Yeah.
can do without me.
I know. See, don't let anyone sell you short.
For all these things that happen, it's like, I don't care whether you like people that got in office or not. I'm just making this an observation. The man of what's he good? He doesn't have any rules, live by any rules or whatever. Lawless.
You mean the one like they talked about here later on in these verses, the lawless
Probably
man?
so.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I work at the phone company, so there's a lot of diversity in where people are from. And so this one black lady that I was good friends with, she said, "Where'd the boy come from?" I said, "Nobody can tell us where this boy came from." Obama, so she's talking. And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" And she said, "He ain't what he says he is." I thought, well, now, and then people think it's a far reach from after these elections have gone on like this to tell people that he could be in one of us right now. And you and I never know until there, and when he's there, and he's gonna be big on the scene. We're all gonna kind of go, if we're around, you gotta kind of go, how did this happen? It wasn't laziness of our parents, as far as I'm concerned, my parents on back. Forward that, you can't get them off the computer long enough to eat, let alone sleep or go to bed.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that our society has changed in the sense of, I mean, even myself, I find, since I am involved in computer technology and I see the AIs that are out there, I mean, I sat down 2 weeks ago and went out and um, took an old church founder, and it's all written in Latin. And I don't speak Latin. I haven't studied Latin. It's just not something that I've really been interested in until this. So I went in, dropped all of it into an AI, had it go in and find 100 of the most used words, kick me out a list that showed all of these words and how they're supposed to be pronounced, and give me a vocabulary list. And I'm working on learning 100 new Latin root words that are tied specifically to, a church founding father. I started reading through it, and guess what? I actually can read kind of what they're saying. The thought that you can just sit down at a computer and have it kick out a vocabulary worksheet for you so I can learn to speak Latin. And it was just like, oh, okay, you want that? Here, let me get it for you. And then it asks the question, do you want that in old church or do you want that in new church? Oh,
Is it new church
old
or
church for
old?
1,000, Alex. Old church for 1,000, Alex. That's yeah. Um, so I mean, from that perspective, honestly, I've been looking for that since 1983. 1980, yeah, 1983 when I first started in computers. I mean, we've been working towards that since, well, my entire career. I'm happy it's here. But at the same time, I can see where a lot of people would lose a lot of skills. I mean, why research if you can just ask the computer to do it for you? I don't know. It's interesting. But I know this sounds like we're chasing rabbits. We're really not. When we tie it all back to where we were talking or what we were talking about, the idea of Western civilization, and when I say Western civilization, let's just be straight up about it. We're talking about Christianity. Has Christianity done anything that has hurt people?
Yeah.
Was it Christianity or was it people involved in Christianity? Um, Mother Teresa. Who was Mother Teresa?
Catholic nun.
A Catholic nun. And where did she spend most of her time? India. What did she do while she was there? Do what?
Humanitarian.
Humanitarian. She was a nurse, literally a nurse. She worked with people that had leprosy, and that was one of her primary angles. Um, but one of the things that she said in her lifetime that people thought was just inconsiderate was she said, sometimes people have to suffer. What does that mean?
Sometimes you have to go through a down period, which I believe even God has shown us that we have people that went through a down period before they came back to do their good.
What does it mean to suffer?
It's like something to be
We don't know. Different
Country.
things to different people.
Yeah.
Suffering to us is no air conditioning. I mean,
And by the way, I did turn off the fan. The air conditioning is still running because I just turned off the fan. So you've still got air going.
That wasn't a sigh on her part.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Suffering can be physical, but what else can it be? Mental. Which one would you rather have, mental or physical?
I don't care for either, thank you. Let
Uh,
it go.
what are you thinking back there? Physical, exactly. Exactly. I can always ignore physical pain, but emotional trauma, that's always a difficult one. Because I can never stop myself from talking to myself. I can stop and not think about my, pain in my leg or my arm or my back or wherever, but I can't stop the incessant chattering that goes on in my head. Anyone else have that problem? Am I the only one?
No.
Okay. All right. Just making sure that sometimes that's the hardest part of being human. You don't know if you're just like everyone else or not, you know. Um, the idea of do I have incessant chatter going on in my head? Um, and I've come to find that I'm not the only one. Um, there's a set of cartoon or animated movies, I think Inside Me, and it's about this child, um, and they're walking you through her pre-adolescence and her migration from being uh, a child to being an adolescent. And they've got 8 characters or something like that, and they're all in a control room in this little girl's head, and they all talk and interact with each other, and it's kind of how we all have those incessant voices that go on in our head, and one part does this, one part does this, one part does this.
So the expansion of the good angel on one shoulder, the
Exactly.
devil on the other, but
Right.
this is spread out.
Yeah, they spread it out to instead of just having the good angel and the bad angel, you get a whole, pantheon. There's a religious term for you we can have in there. Um, can we blame Western civilization for all of the woes in the world?
Sure, they're probably not gonna step up and accept it, but we can blame them.
Um, is the United States a primary example of Western civilization?
It's a result of it. I don't know if it's primary.
Well, I'm thinking about of all the other countries that consider themselves to be a member of the Western Civilization Club, the UK, the EU. They call it the European Union. I mean, it's where it all started, across down into the Middle East and so forth. How many of us like being called colonizers? What does it mean to call someone a colonizer?
Implanting
Your
something.
goal is to take over somebody else for your own good.
Is that technically what our country is made of? Colonization. We're going to become the dominant society here. I mean, and the only reason I'm bringing this up is we're actually trying to incorporate a bit of today's society into this conversation. How do people look at Christianity in today's society? I see a lot of people looking at me, what are you talking about? Why are we talking about this? Can't we do something else? Well, we're getting there. The idea of manifest destiny. How many of you remember that term from your old social studies days? What is manifest destiny?
It's predetermined by God that we should do it.
Okay, exactly. And when you look at the Civil War, for example, immediately following the Civil War, where did the Union soldiers go?
Local watering house.
Well, after, let's not say immediately. Let's say 4 or 5 years later,
Oh.
they went home. No, they went to North Dakota, South Dakota. They went to Montana. And what did they do when they were there? The soldiers,
They homesteaded.
What do you mean?
Police.
they killed all the Indians.
Police.
Between 1865 and like 1905, it was the last purge of all of the American Indians. They herded everyone into their reservations, and that's where everyone ended up being, right? I hate to tell you this, but that's what happened. Between 1865 and 1900 is when the rest of the American Indians were all settled on their reservations. And those soldiers who'd been trained after the Civil War were very brutal in what they did. Custer, right? We all remember the stories about Custer. I mean, we weren't there. But how many of you know who he is? And why do you know who he is? They were wiped out at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, right? Is that right?
Yeah.
Battle of, okay. They were wiped out there. And he became a national hero because what was he doing? He was supporting manifest destiny, the concept that we had a right as Western civilization to take over this continent. Think about the Spanish, the Spaniards. Where did they start? Mexico, well, it's further south than that. Yeah. South, way down in South America, right? And that's where you see Columbus and the introduction to the New World in 1492 and all of that. What killed the majority of the people on both continents, North and South America? Diseases. Just the fact that you walked up to someone and shook their hand was enough to do what? Wiped out 75% of the population without a single gun being fired. And that's kind of unique.
In Paraguay, when we went, they have the desert part called the Chaco, and it was still legal to hunt the Indians that were still there. Right.
Yeah,
But
in your lifetime.
we had new tribe missionaries that lived out there that we knew. And
So-
yeah,
Yeah.
for the last 25 years.
So, who came up with the concept of manifest destiny? Was it God or was it people?
People, probably people.
I haven't found it in the Bible yet.
I mean, you think about it, was it God or was it people? Because that's a big question.
Well, he may have put the ideas in their head. I mean, he does do that.
I mean, we see how many, let's start over with this one.
Okay.
How many of you have ever heard someone say, I don't like the God of the Old Testament, I just believe in the one in the New Testament?
God of the Old Testament could be really brutal. When people didn't obey him.
I mean, what's going on in Israel today?
Not good.
Are they at war?
They are.
And how long have they had this war going on?
Forever.
Since
Says
Abraham
the
came,
Bible says.
Who's I think it's interesting why did they crucify Christ? Why did the Jews allow Christ to be crucified? What did he stand in the way of? Thank you very much. Ding, ding, ding. You win. Overthrowing Rome. Jesus stood between the Jews and the Romans because he said, we do not kill our neighbors. Right? He said, when Peter cut off the ear of a Roman soldier, he puts the ear back on and says, we're not doing that. Because why did Judas give up Christ?
Because he wasn't gonna be a warrior of God.
Because he finally came to the conclusion that while Jesus was a very righteous man, he was not going to push the agenda of getting rid of the Romans and taking over the world. Right? What kind of church are we in right now?
Baptist.
A Baptist church. What does it mean to be a Baptist church?
We have one belief in God,
Starts with a C and ends with a T.
Christians.
Christ based, right? We're Christians. How did we get here?
Back in 1895.
Between 1865 and how did we get to the place where we are sitting in a Christian church over 2,000 years later talking about a person named Jesus Christ?
There's only one way to heaven.
Because
The word's out there.
the disciples, the apostles went out and spread the word. That's
They
what I heard.
they went out and spread the word. Now,
Well, his plan wouldn't have worked. God's plan wouldn't have worked if he hadn't gotten.
is it possible? I mean, Judaism was pretty good at war,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They were pretty good at it. I mean, they did take over the regions they were in, but they weren't the Roman Empire, right? The Romans were very advanced. How many of you, and I know the answer to this, but I'm just going to throw it out there because I'm going to pretend that you guys all do this. How many of you watch YouTube?
YouTube?
YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He does all day long. I've never paid much attention to it.
Yeah. Well, on YouTube, do what? Yeah. What's that?
We've never paid
Um,
much attention to it.
I've
Yeah.
never been on it.
YouTube basically is where everyone in the world becomes famous for posting whatever they're into. If you're into history, you create content and you publish it and people watch it, right? Um, YouTube has actually got a lot of very interesting things out there. One of the things that you'll find is that the Romans were very good at what they did. We still see things that they produced that we can't produce, especially when it comes to engineering. We've sent people to the moon, but yet we still can't replicate some of the things that the Romans did. Why? Because they were really good.
You mean their siege engine?
No, just concrete for one. I mean, there's concrete that still exists from the Roman period, and we can't even keep a dam, or not a dam, but a road from degrading. And yes, I understand that we have giant semis that are going across them, but bridges should technically, if we use the same type of concrete, should exist a lot longer than they do. How many of you have ever driven around 435 loop? And why is it always backed up? Because they have to redo the bridges every so many years. Every single bridge has to be rebuilt every so many years.
It's the concrete part that they're rebuilding, not the eye bars.
Yeah, I mean, they just have to refinish all the concrete and all that kind of stuff. Now, what does that have to do with anything? Well, you're not going to defeat the Roman Empire at the time of Christ. It's just not going to happen. What changed? What did Christ bring to the table that allows us to sit in this church 2,000 years later?
Concept of living together peacefully.
Conquest, right? But yet, can you say that this nation is not a nation of conquest?
What was it? Alaska joined the Union in 1951.
What's that?
Look at
When Alaska-
The
Said January 3rd, 1910.
Before that,
Must
we
be
bought
one of the Russians
Alaska
now.
from the Russians.
Yeah. I mean, when we stop and think about, can you say that Christianity has helped the world or has it harmed the world?
Well, I don't think the Christian had to come in strong, that this might be a terrible place to live.
No, I get it. I mean, from this perspective, they killed Jesus Christ because he was not the type of leader that they wanted. They wanted a leader that would make them the nation, right? What did they get instead? Well, they were gone by 80 AD. All those people that were alive that yelled, "Crucify him and give us Barabbas," were dead by 1980, 19, not 1980, 80. I'm saying 1980, yeah, they were all dead by then. Um, but by 80, they were either dispersed or dead. They were no longer in that land. It was all done. 79 AD, I think they started the war in 72 AD. By 79 AD, the whole Masada, the whole thing was all done. And what started immediately following that? You already had Paul out doing his thing. He was already on his way to Rome. I think he died somewhere soon after that, if not just right before it. We see Christianity become the predominant religion. Who sits in Rome? The Pope. Catholicism sits at the heart of Rome, the same city in which they cut off Paul's head has an unbroken succession of popes to today. We just got a new pope here recently. Mother Teresa, if she is sitting there saying people have to learn to suffer, what does that mean? We have to learn to suffer. Give ear to my words, O Yahweh. Consider my meditation. Give heed to the sound of my cry for help, my King and my God. For to you I pray. Does that sound like someone that's suffering?
Well, I'd say if they're praying, well, there's a problem of some type.
I mean, the sound of my cry for help. Give heed. Now let's look at the Coleman here. Pay attention to the sound of my cry. How many of you have ever heard a baby cry?
Yes, kind of hard to not pay attention.
But how many of you learn how not to hear the baby cry?
Never got that.
Never.
I don't think I
Ever
ever
happened, I don't think.
Well,
Well, now they have the
monitors, yeah.
that you
But I
can't
mean,
shut it off.
how many of you remember having to teach your kids how to go to sleep by themselves in their own bed? I remember when, we had to teach the boys that they have to. Well, actually, we didn't really have to do a lot of that. The Russians already had that and taken care of because they just threw them in a crib and said,
And they
"Good night,
said-
see you in the morning." That was pretty much it. But the idea of do we sometimes feel like God's just letting us cry ourselves to sleep? Anyone here ever cried yourself to sleep? You don't have to raise your hand.
When our first daughter died, yeah.
It sometimes can feel like God doesn't care, like God is just not there. He's not paying attention. Listen to these words that he's saying. Pay attention to the sound of my cry, my King and my God, for I pray to you. What I know from my personal experience, when I pray, even though I'm fully aware that God exists, and there's nothing in my life that would tell me that God does not exist. He's just been there for me in my entire life. But yet there are still times where I feel alone. I don't feel like I belong here. Right? Again, I'm asking a question here. Am I the only one? Do any of you ever feel like you're an alien? Like, why am I here? Why am I going through this? And it's not even the fact that you can look at your life and say, I got a pretty good life going on here. I'm not unhappy with my life, but yet I feel like I'm outside of what I'm supposed to be feeling. Depression. No one?
Yeah.
I'm the only one that's ever been depressed?
It comes along.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we see here. We see this person saying, pay attention to the sound of my cry. Think about going to God and actually just stating, hey, I'm here. Listen to me. You're my king. You're my God. I'm praying to you. Hey, help. How many of you have ever had that prayer?
Yes. I think when my mother was sick, I thought, God, can we not just do something? I pretended like he was on vacation because he didn't answer me. But, it's just like, here.
Exactly. I mean, we sometimes feel that we're in this alone.
If you have a sick child or.
Again, the first concept that we talked about here was how many of you have ever hidden anything from your spouse about your true feelings on something? Why? Because
Sometimes it's just better.
well, sometimes it's not about you and your spouse. Sometimes it's about you and God. And what am I supposed to be doing to make God happy? Am I supposed to make God happy? Maybe not.
You did.
No, yeah, exactly. I mean, I mean, and we'll read, that we see that God appreciates people who look to follow his lead. So let's keep reading. At daybreak, Lord, you hear my voice. At daybreak, I plead my case to you and watch expectantly. For you are not a God who delights in wickedness. Evil cannot dwell with you. The boastful cannot stand in your presence. You hate all evildoers. You destroy those who tell lies. The Lord abhors a man of bloodshed and treachery. Who is he telling this to? I mean, doesn't God already know who he is? Does God need me to explain God?
Wouldn't think so.
But we still have to get things off our shoulders. And he's talking to God.
Yeah, he's basically saying, I feel lost. But yet I know who you are. And he lists those things. And then verse 7, but I enter your house by the abundance of your faithful love. I bowed down toward your holy temple in reverential awe of you. Again, who is he telling this to? I mean, is he really speaking to God or is he convincing himself?
Probably both.
Again, we're back to what is meditation? To meditate on something means to talk it through, right? Self-soothing, what does that mean? What is self-soothing?
Calming yourself.
And one of the ways we can do that is just what we see here. What do we see? We see him going to God and reinforcing in our mind that God, while being an amazing entity, a lot of people have done things in his name to destroy it.
Just like the false prophets in the Old Testament, they were saying they were prophesying in God's name and they weren't.
Exactly. And we have seen people throughout history, for example, our country, who had a president who said, go put those Indians on a reservation. They literally brought blankets to them that had been exposed to smallpox. I mean, think about how callous you have to be to bring blankets to someone because they're cold, knowing that they were full of disease and was going to kill them. Can you say that was the will of God?
I can.
Now,
You
Yeah.
have to ask your question, what separates them from the Canaanites and all the other people that Israel said he wasn't going to wipe them out.
yeah. I mean, there are people that God has said, when you go in, you kill everyone. Don't leave anyone standing. That's a whole different discussion that we can have. Verse 9. For there is nothing reliable in what they say. Destruction is within them. Their throat is an open grave. They flatter with their tongues. Punish them, God. Let them fall by their own schemes. Drive them out because of their many crimes, for they rebel against you. But let all who take refuge in you rejoice. Let them shout for joy forever. May you shelter them, and may those who love your name boast about you. For you, Lord, bless the righteous one. You surround him with favor like a shield. When you find in life that God is no longer listening to you, what do we do?
We take it upon ourselves and try to make it happen.
How many of you have ever convinced yourself that maybe you're not as bad as you think you are?
Well, I was flying home on, I wasn't flying home, we was hauling freight. And, we had an engine cutting up. Well, it don't fly on one engine real good. And you lose altitude pretty quick. Well, there's a tunnel on this particular plane that goes out through the wing.
Mhm.
And I went out and look here, I'm not gonna tell you what. And the engine got full power and we landed safe.
I mean, yeah,
You know, talk about fresh air. When you're about 12,000 feet or so, maybe more. And that air coming through that engine, 18 cylinders are just almost glowing red.
it
Yeah,
exactly.
and no, it's that's when you thank the good Lord.
We have to find our place within God's world. If you are afraid of God, if you are judgmental of God, if you wonder why he can allow people to die for no good reason, you have to stop and realize that someone else is in control. Is life bigger than you? What led you to this place today? And if it could reach you after 2,000 years, is it possible that maybe this idea of following and believing in God might possibly have some merit? Or should we just scrap all of it? That's a large part of today's discussion in our world. Have we outgrown God? And that's what you have to ask yourself. Can you outgrow God?
I
And
don't
if,
think there's enough liquor anywhere.
yeah.
The older I get, the more I know I can't.
And how many of you are willing to say, you know what? I'm not as great as I think I am. I must give myself over to God. So, on that note, we took a lot of weird paths. Thank you for being here and have a good day.
I like it.